The history of Russian Christianity, just like the history of Christianity in any other country, is filled with blood, sweat and tears. Especially blood, because even to this day, many political, cultural, economic and religious arguments have been reconciled with violence. Anyone who acts, thinks or believes differently from the mainstream of power structures has been considered a threat to be isolated or eliminated. Many religions, Christianity included, emphasize the role of martyrs, people who suffered for their faith. Orthodox Christianity has a complex system of canonization of such people, distinguishing between people persecuted or killed for their faith, but also clerics of various positions, monks and nuns, or monarchs. The communist regime installed at the beginning of the 20th century in Russia was largely built on the annihilation of its enemies, people suspected of being enemies, the active proponents of the regime getting too influential, and even random people, whose incarceration or execution served the only purpose of fulfilling the quotas. Religion and religious institutions were declared alien to the communist ideology, including the Russian Orthodox Church as a servant of the old Tsarist regime. When it comes to the Orthodox population, the spread of the Orthodox faith, if only a cultural tradition, has always been too significant to destroy the whole Church. Hence, even during the years of the harshest repressions, the Church and freedom of religion were formally recognized. Anti-religious policies fluctuated with time and political trends. During the early years of Bolshevik Russia, the state power somewhat successfully initiated a church schism, known as the Renovationist movement. Later, Stalin's repressions practically destroyed the church leadership and physically eliminated a huge portion of the clergy. During the Great Patriotic War, however, this policy was revisited, and the church structures were reinstalled again, though under the strict control of the state. And lastly, starting with Khrushchev's anti-religious campaign in the early 1960s, the Church was experiencing a constant ideological pressure, state control of her formal structures, and was forced to serve the state interests both domestically and abroad. The Church leadership reacted to these challenges in different ways, by cooperating, giving up power, or resisting. Today, I want to talk about one particular canonical response to these hardships. Since the early days, and especially after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Church has compiled a pantheon of Orthodox Christians who suffered for their faith during the communist era. This corpus of names and life stories is known as the Council of the New Martyrs and Confessors of the Russian Church. From the very beginning of the Bolshevik rule, Orthodox Christians, and especially the clergy and monastics, faced persecution. The Church Council that elected Patriarch Tikhon, the first patriarch in 200 years, began its first sessions even before the Bolshevik Revolution, but already in March 1918, the council, headed by the new patriarch, discussed the list of new martyrs killed by the new rule. Formally, the first martyr of the pantheon was Archpriest Ivan Kochurov. Father Ioan served in St. Catherine Church in Tsarskое Selo, a beautiful historic town close to St. Petersburg, currently known as Pushkin. During the altercation between the Red Army and local Cossacks, who supported the overthrown provisional government, Father Ioan headed a cross procession and preached a sermon calling for peace. Other sources say that he openly supported the Cossacks. Anyways, he was severely beaten by an angry crowd, brought to the local airfield, and shot. Witnesses say he did not die instantly, but succumbed to his wounds later. Another one of the early martyrs was the Metropolitan of Kiev, Vladimir. One of the most influential bishops, he led many sessions and liturgies of the Council of 1917, and during the election of the Patriarch, declared the winning lot with the name of Metropolitan Tikhon. Back in Kiev, in January 1918, he participated in the Ukrainian Church Council, where he strictly opposed the idea of the Ukrainian Church being autonomous from Moscow. A few days later, the Red Army surrounded the Kiev-Pechersk monastery, the official residence of the Metropolitan. Later that month, 5 armed men entered Metropolitan Vladimir's home, took him outside, and killed him by shooting and stabbing him multiple times. Some sources say that the goal of his murderers was a simple robbery. Others say it was political. Since those first murders, the canonical concept of new martyrs has been developed in the Church. Already Patriarch Tikhon, who would himself join the pantheon as a holy confessor, the one who suffered but was not martyred, served numerous liturgies, listing the known names of martyrs and also praying for their unknown ones. Initially, most of the martyrs were clergymen or monastics because the connection between their faith and persecution was evident. Later on, proven cases of lay people persecuted for their faith were added. The most notorious case was the family of the last monarch, Nicholas II. More on him later. Stalin's repressions of the 1930s made the most significant dark contribution to the list. The church leadership and the majority of her clergy were either executed or sent to gulag camps. Many monastics or active laymen also shared their fate. And the number of simple believers whose persecution was caused by their faith is impossible to even estimate. The open discussion and veneration of the new martyrs and confessors were suppressed by the state until the liberalization of religion in the mid-1980s. Yet, the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia started this process already in the early years of the communist rule. Among the most important figures of the pantheon were holy hero confessor Patriarch Tikhon, the family and household of Tsar Nicholas, and even the clerics who opposed the loyalist position of future Patriarch Sergei in the 1920s, 1930s. Persecuted renovationists and other schismatics were not considered among the new martyrs and confessors. The church abroad had some challenges with sources of canonization. There were materials brought from Russia and preserved by émigré priests. Other canonizations were based on leaks from the Soviet Union, including even the official Soviet press reporting on criminal cases. Hence, it was not always possible to verify cases to indicate whether or not a particular person collaborated with the authorities, openly confessed his faith, and was involved in schisms and heresies. When it comes to the Moscow Church, the process of canonization started in the late Perestroika. In 1989, the Synodal Commission was formed, and later that year, Patriarch Tikhon was canonized. He would become the symbolic head of the whole council of the new martyrs and confessors, along with Jesus Christ himself. Eventually, by the year 2000, there was a long list of martyrs and confessors, some of whom were already beatified. In 2000, the Church held a great council which ratified the corpus of the new martyrs and confessors, both named and unnamed. Most eparchies provided lists of their local martyrs. A separate decision was made about canonizing the family of Tsar Nicholas. The council beatified 670 people in total, not to mention the unnamed unknown ones. This was the biggest number of saints canonized at once by the Russian Church ever. As of today, the list of names includes a little less than 2,000 martyrs and confessors. There is a separate veneration of martyrs executed at the Butovo field next to Moscow. This field was one of the infamous sites of mass executions in 1937-1938. The list of known victims is more than 20,000 people, and among them there are about 1,000 known Orthodox clergy or laymen, of which more than 300 are canonized. One of the bishops executed in Butovo was 81-year-old Metropolitan Seraphim. See a video about the holy hero martyr Seraphim on my channel. One of the most controversial cases was the canonization of the royal family. Nicholas, his immediate family, and the household were executed by Bolsheviks in the basement in Yekaterinburg in 1918. The Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia canonized the whole family and household in 1981. Naturally, the Russian Orthodox Church was only able to do it much later and canonized the royal family in 2000. Apart from the immediate family of Nicholas shot in the basement, there were several other episodes in which his family members were killed in other places. The church abroad canonized the family and the whole household, including even one Lutheran and one Catholic. The Russian Church, however, only canonized the Romanovs, adding the loyal Dr. Botkin, shot with his Tsar in 2016. Apart from that, there are other issues with this canonization. First, many critics and historians remind us that the reign of Nicholas was full of troubles caused by his weak rule and terrible decision-making. Many believe that he was responsible for leading the country to the brink of collapse, losing the war with Japan, catastrophic position in the First World War, and eventually to a series of revolutions that ended the rule of the House of Romanovs. His and his wife's personal faith was also highly questionable and controversial. Nicholas made no attempts to restore the Patriarchate and liberate the Church from state control. He issued the controversial decree of 1905, giving more religious freedom to other faiths. And his wife, Alexandra Feodorovna, had a very problematic relationship with the self-proclaimed healer Grigory Rasputin. Next, the canonization of the Romanovs used the title of Righteous Passion Bearers. Although canonically not exclusive, traditionally this title was given to monarchs who suffered persecution for living a Christian life. The justification for the canonization of the Romanovs included the narrative of the ritual killing. Some even claimed that the ritual was performed by Jews against the Orthodox faith, to which there is no evidence. There is no evidence of the Christian faith of the Romanovs playing any role in this evidently political execution either. Next, in canonization, the Romanovs are referred to as the royal family and Nicholas as emperor or Tsar. This is factually incorrect. Under the pressure of heavy losses in the war and great civil unrest in Russia, in March 1917, Nicholas signed a formal abdication act for himself and his son Alexei in favor of his brother Mikhail, who would later also abdicate. Hence, by the time of his death, he was formally and officially not a monarch. Again, the canon does not indicate that the title of a passion bearer should be exclusively applied to state leaders, yet all the narratives refer to Nicholas as one. The Heavenly Council of the new Martyrs and Confessors is not closed. Some names are added to it, some are excluded after compromising circumstances are revealed. Anyways, this pantheon is not only a canonical document or a liturgical tradition of the Church remembering her children who remained faithful in the face of persecution and horrible death. It is a valuable piece of Russian history, a truly tragic and important one. Whether we share the faith of the Church's faithful or not, many of them stood strong before their judges and murderers, remained loyal, and kept their honor. There are 2,000 known and countless unknown names in the pantheon, probably only known to God, but not forgotten by us living either. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel I'll see you all next time.